Hello everyone. Topic: Extortion 17, Cover-Up. Okay, there's a story that's breaking all over the independent media. It's not really being picked up too much by the corporate media, and for good reason. This story, Extortion 17, and the cover-up, is breaking because there has been a whistleblower who has come forward. And this ties together quite a few things, which I'm going to go through in brief for you. I'll leave a link in the description so you can read a much more detailed version of the summary I'm going to give you. It's a fascinating story. Now that there's a whistleblower coming forward, I doubt the corporate media will be able to hold this story down. It is going to come out. And this story is largely being driven by two people. Number one, Larry Klayman, who, of course, is, as you probably most of you know, started Freedom Watch and Judicial Watch. He is the lawyer representing the families of the some of the servicemen who were killed in the operation called Extortion 17. Also, Sarah Carter, a wonderful reporter who's also been very good on the Trump surveillance story from Circa News, is also the reporter who is breaking this story right now as we speak, as she did an interview with this whistleblower. They are probably arranging the financials to show the video, although you can see the video right now on the Freedom Watch website, where I'll be providing a link for you. But I imagine that you'll be seeing this video all over every mainstream media. It'll probably show up on Fox first. The other media organizations will try to avoid this and not talk about it, but they simply can't keep a story down that's this big, because it's a huge story and it's breaking right now. I also want to give a shout out to a YouTuber who is very good, and he's the one who tipped me off to this story. This particular YouTuber goes by the handle The Piper Report. So great thanks to The Piper Report for tipping me off to this story. If you're not subscribed to The Piper Report, I highly suggest that you do. He offers a lot of very thoughtful insight into a wide range of topics. He does a very good job, and his videos are a lot shorter than mine. He does an excellent job, so I highly suggest that you go over and subscribe to The Piper Report, and I think you'll enjoy that very much if you do. So let's get to this story. Essentially, as most of you know, if you can remember back that far, August 6th of 2011, we had 30 people on a Chinook helicopter conducting a mission in Afghanistan who were shot down by a shoulder-fired rocket grenade. 22 of the individuals on that chopper were Special Ops soldiers, including Navy SEALs, including some who were from the SEAL Team 6 that conducted the bin Laden raid. So what happened here, I'm just going to read through some of this for you in a summary, and I'm going to point out some of the things here that are facts and some of the things that are alleged. Okay, so Extortion 17 was a hastily arranged mission in Afghanistan that took place on August 6, 2011. There were 30 individuals on this Chinook helicopter, 22 of which were Special Ops soldiers, including members of SEAL Team 6 that were part of the bin Laden raid. They were sent into a hot zone to offer support in a battle zone against Al-Qaeda fighters and obviously some Taliban there as well. The helicopter was, of course, shot down by the Taliban with the shoulder-fired rocket, and this occurred about 3 months after the bin Laden raid in Islamabad, where it is alleged that Osama bin Laden was killed in that raid. Obviously, there's a lot of people who contradict that, don't believe that, and I understand why a lot of people wouldn't believe that, because quite honestly, they didn't show us the pictures, and it was a shady operation. I, however, do believe that this operation did happen. I am one of those people. There's a saying, some people see a conspiracy in everything, some people see a conspiracy in nothing, and then there's the other group of people, which is where I fall in, which sometimes I see the conspiracy, sometimes I don't. In this case, I certainly can understand why people would believe there was a conspiracy and the whole thing was a lie and bin Laden died of kidney failure. I can understand that. There's a lot of evidence to support that, a lot of common sense rationale to support that. But I have a tendency to believe that that raid did happen. As far as the aftermath of what happened, I believe there was some sort of a cover-up or something going on there. But I believe that that raid probably did happen. So anyhow, let's get now to some things that are being alleged. What I just gave you was the facts. We know this happened. We know that this helicopter was shot down. We know that these individuals, soldiers, were killed. We know basically what was going on with that. I don't think there's any dispute of these facts. It's being alleged that the shoot down of the chopper is believed to be payback for killing bin Laden. That's not a proven fact. It's being alleged of that. There's evidence to support that may be true. Also, it's being alleged that the horribly corrupt President Hamid Karzai, who we know is a longtime CIA asset with deep ties to the military-industrial complex, who was basically put in power as sort of a puppet president after we toppled the Taliban. Now it is believed that he had given the time and the coordinates for the attack so that the Taliban could shoot down this chopper as payback for killing bin Laden. It is believed that he was offered cash and was given a promise by the Taliban that they would not reveal information that could be used to cause great damage to Karzai. In other words, they probably had information that Karzai knew the existence of Osama bin Laden being in that compound for over 6 years. So apparently the Taliban was going to do something maybe to release information which was going to put Karzai on the hot seat, because they were going to do something to release information saying, hey, Karzai knew the whole time that bin Laden was there, and he's the puppet for the American government. So it is believed that he was extortion used against him by the Taliban, that they wanted something in return for keeping his secret. And what they wanted was to get retaliation against the people who killed bin Laden. So apparently they offered him some cash, and they offered not to disclose any information that would finger him as being someone who had information about bin Laden and simply was hiding him, helping to keep him safe there in Abbottabad. So this is what's being alleged. Okay, so let's go back to facts. Initially after the shootdown, the Obama administration Department of Defense did their crash report, which they have not released. They stated that there were no eyes in the sky over the Chinook helicopter. And of course, this is very strange, because in these types of operations, they almost always have these eyes in the sky. What they mean is an AC-130 gunship, which has infrared radar, various types of radar, heat-seeking radar, and also has guns, which can be used to provide air support, fire support from the air for the operations that are about to take place on the ground. Because when they bring in these helicopters into a hot zone, they're dropping them right into the middle of a battlefront where they're surrounded by bad guys. And so they'll have an aircraft gunship, an AC-130, fly over, scan the area with the radar, with their detection equipment, and if they see bad guys, they will use their guns to fire on the bad guys to provide cover, so that when the helicopters come in and the soldiers deploy, they have some fire cover from the bad guys who are, of course, have them pretty much surrounded in the hot zone that they're coming into. And that's what that mission was that night. There were soldiers on the ground engaged in a firefight around a compound, and they needed support, so they sent this group of special ops soldiers into the hot zone to try to offer support on the ground for what was taking place. The DoD says that there was no eyes in the sky gunship, and they also say that the black box that was supposed to be recovered from the downed chopper was never found, that it got washed away in a flood. We now know that's ridiculous, because there was no heavy rain or any type of thing that would have created a flood in that particular region anytime after. Plus we can see the photos. Clearly you can see the photos of the downed helicopter. and you can see that it's not covered up in mud, water, or anything else. You can see all kinds of debris laying around it. So to believe that the black box was washed away in a flood is simply part of the cover-up of the story. They probably had that black box and have probably destroyed it so that we'd never learn what really happened. But we know from the whistleblower that the helicopter hovered for about 13 minutes over this site, giving the bad guys on the ground, the Taliban, plenty of time to lock in on their target and shoot down that chopper. So it appears that the DoD did not release the crash report. They have basically disposed of the black box. And what they did was they essentially began a cover-up. And largely the reason that they did this cover-up had something to do with the rules that they put in place for what we could do to engage the enemy, the rules of engagement, known as the ROE. It was the ROE that probably led to the death of these soldiers. But basically it was a cover-up operation. They didn't want the truth to get out about what really happened that night. And so, getting on to more facts, after this all happened, they then took the bodies of the servicemen and they cremated them without the consent of their families. Reminds you a lot of the Pat Tillman situation. So this was all, again, part of the cover-up. They got rid of the black box. They came out and claimed there were no eyes in the sky. Then they cremated the bodies of the servicemen so they couldn't conduct autopsies as part of an investigation. And keep in mind, the Secretary of Defense at that time was Leon Panetta in the Obama administration. So what we had here was a cover-up. But what they needed to really close the deal in the cover-up is to do what they always do in the swamp. And that is to have congressional hearings in the Senate and in the House. So the hearings were first held in the House Oversight Committee. One of the chair people of that committee was Jason Chaffetz. Jason Chaffetz has recently announced that he was going to be leaving Congress. And then on his way out the door, he thought he would go ahead and join the Democrats and continuing a smear campaign against Michael Flynn. Jason Chaffetz, a lot of people are wondering why he's acting in such a bizarre fashion in the last week or so. Well, maybe it's because Jason Chaffetz got wind of this information, of this report done by Sarah Carter of Circa News with this whistleblower. Maybe Jason Chaffetz understands that this cover-up operation that he ran is now about to be exposed, and he's going to be right in the center of it. Maybe that has something to do with why Jason Chaffetz is acting so strange. There's some serious questions to be asked about this whole operation, and I remember when this happened. Being in the military and being someone who I was attached to a MASH unit when I was in the 1st Infantry Division. My job was to fly around on a chopper, on a medevac chopper. I was a communications operator on the chopper, navigator communications. We did a lot of work with helicopters because a lot of our equipment for our Mobile Support Army Surgical Hospital and a lot of our vehicles, we used these large Chinook helicopters to transport our materials, our equipment, and our vehicles. What we never did was transport troops. We always transported troops with Hueys. The Army has always transported troops with Hueys. Transporting troops on Chinooks, especially special operations troops, which cost about $200,000 just to train one of them, is insane. And I remember when this story first came out, and they said, yeah, they were in a Chinook helicopter. The first thing that crossed in my mind was, you had 30 special ops troops in a Chinook? In a hot area in a combat zone? For those of you who do not know, a Chinook is those big helicopters that you see that have the big double rotating blades. They're long, and they're not like a regular helicopter you see with a big front blade and a small rear blade that goes this way. The Chinook has two giant blades, one really big blade and another pretty large blade in the back, and they both kind of go like this. One goes this way and one goes this way. If you can do that, if you got the coordination to do that, if you can walk and chew gum at the same time, I guess you can do that double opposite rotation thing. But this is what a Chinook is. And let me tell you, my friends, having a great deal of many hours flying in Hueys and watching Chinooks, I can tell you that a Chinook is a slow flying helicopter. It is a big, slow flying helicopter. But more importantly, it is a very, very loud helicopter. You can hear a Chinook coming 5 miles away. You can be standing, I remember standing many times somewhere, and we would know the Chinooks were coming to bring the equipment that we were waiting for. And we would hear them coming from miles away. Long before we could ever see the Chinook, we can hear the Chinook. They're large, they're slow, they're loud. Why in the world you would put 22 special operations soldiers, which cost $200,000 a pop to train, on a vehicle like that and fly them into a hot combat zone is insane. Okay, now let's get to the nuts and bolts of where this whole story and why this story is blowing up. Sarah Carter recently conducted an interview with a whistleblower. She was one of the pilots and the targeting officer on the AC-130 gunship that we're told was not there. As it turns out, it was there. Not only that, this whistleblower in her interview, which you can watch the video, the link will be in the description, she tells you exactly what happened. They saw the fighters on the ground. They saw them arming themselves. They saw the chopper flying right into a setup. They radioed back to their people on the ground from the AC-130 gunship and informed them of this and said, hey, call off the chopper. They're flying into a trap. Then they asked, they did not get a response. They did not turn the chopper around. They let it continue flying into its setup. Then the AC-130 gunship and this pilot, Joni Marquez, then said, hey, we've got Taliban fighters on the ground. It looks like they're going to fire on this chopper. They're sitting ducks. And they requested permission to fire on the targets. Now you're probably asking, why the hell would they need to ask permission? They had asked permission because the rules of engagement under the Obama administration was that you could not fire on these people unless they fired on you first. And this is why they covered it up. This is why they covered it up, folks. Because they knew if the truth came out and the families of these soldiers learned that they flew right into a setup, an ambush, and they knew from the AC-130 gunship, the eyes in the sky flight that's there on all these types of missions, told them that there was an ambush waiting for them, told them to turn around, and then asked permission to fire on these guys, and they were denied. Had they turned the chopper around, the situation never would have happened. Had they been able to fire on these targets on the ground, the situation never would have happened. The rules of engagement prevented them from doing so. And so this all had to be covered up. And Jason Chaffetz was one of the heads of that committee that was part of the conduction of this cover-up. This is breaking news story. It's going to be everywhere soon. I'm going to put the link in the description. You can watch the video of the interview with Sarah Carter of Circa News. It's on the Freedom Watch website. The link will be provided. This is going to be a major story. And we'll wait and see where this story goes. But I can tell you, folks, this one here is going to blow up. And a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions to ask. And maybe now we know why Jason Chaffetz is acting so peculiar, don't we? So there we go. Extortion 17 cover-up. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys.